Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. Derek here, and I've got with me another special guest here. Steve is a man that I've known for quite some time, especially in my time in Norfolk. We kind of disconnected when he went off and did his thing, and I went off and did my thing, and we reconnected recently. And just briefly hearing about this guy, I felt like I needed to bring him on and have him tell us and show us these magnificent things that are going on in his life. Steve, welcome, man. It's good to have you.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we got to reconnect, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and just tell a little bit of my story.
Right on, right on. Hey, so everybody gets this challenge. Can you describe yourself to us in 2 sentences?
Oh, man, 2 sentences.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Bible-believing, weightlifting, father, husband, and Christian, period. And my priorities will always be faith, family, health, and then everything else in that order, period.
Period. I like the use of the actual. I mean, you didn't throw the commas in there, but you did do the periods for
Yep,
emphasis.
there it
That's
is.
solid, man. And so when I met you back in Norfolk at the gym, we were just in competition for the best legs. You know, just trying to. Which the decision on that is out, and we're still in competition for that. Although, you know, as far as weight classes now, we might be a little different. I might be a little bit super heavyweight than you are. It's fine. I'll forgive you for that. So we'll figure out that contest a little bit later. We
Yeah.
can't do and plus, you know, FaceTime adds and subtracts 20 pounds and
Of
vascularity
course.
and stuff like that. And only one of us on this is actually just got done working out and is currently flexing in the FaceTime. Um, but just, man, like you were, when we met, you were, you know, my wife and I was working at the gym. My wife and I, you know, had met you and your wife at the time, and you're a pilot, the pilot stash, the pilot lifestyle, Navy, you know, it's Norfolk, so it's a Navy town. And then, you know, I end up going, you know, I'm a cop. We kind of connect during that time. Then after that, kind of fall off. We're kind of at a distance. And then I go off and I'm not a cop anymore. And then when we connect, you're down in Florida. You're a youth pastor, a high school pastor. Tell us, like, how do you go from that? Like, what happened? But tell us about that. What happened from then
Yeah.
to now?
It's this is going to be a long period of your podcast where they don't hear you talk, and
They're
I
gonna
just
love
get
that.
out.
Trust me, they're gonna love that.
I'll tell you the whole story, man. So yeah, you met me. I was about 25 years old. I'm 34 now, just for reference to all the people out there about how long we've known each other. I was 25 years old. I was high on life, high on myself, and pretty far from God. I got married young. I met my wife at 23, was married at 24 with a kid on the way. When I met you, we already had one. While I knew you, we had a second. In that time, I had 2 deployments, probably 5 or 6 TDYs, and I was on the road almost as much as I was home. Um, was not the man or the husband I wanted to be. Not any single glaring issue, not like, oh, this is where I lost it, but just overall, I was not a great example of what I want to be now as a father and as a husband. So I put my career first, really put the pedal to the grindstone, just assumed the family would always be there, that type of stuff. And I paid for it in ways I wouldn't realize until later in life. So we went through multiple deployments, multiple children. I was Catholic my whole life, but I was your typical Catholic my whole life, where, yeah, I was there on Christmas, I was there on Easter. As I got a little bit more into adulthood, I went some more on my own. But if I'm being completely truthful, I did not take advantage of the church in a way to grow my relationship, and really just took advantage of the tradition
Yeah,
and the legalism,
yeah.
which is easy to do.
Hmm.
I showed up because I felt like I had to. I said the words, I ate the cookie, I drank the wine, I stood up, I kneeled down, I spoke Latin, I walked out, and I got nothing from it. And a lot of that was just my problem. I think there's some great people in the Catholic Church. I think there's some great Catholic churches, but I just wasn't a good Christian in the Catholic Church. So moved down in 2017 at 27 years old to Florida to be a flight instructor. I was a helicopter instructor or a helicopter pilot up in Norfolk, moved down here to be a flight instructor in Pensacola. And our marriage was already kind of not great for no specific reason, just kind of a death by a thousand cuts type thing.
Yeah.
But I moved for my wife at the time. And as a preface, everything I say about my wife at the time, now my ex-wife, is a reflection of who she was and not who she is, because her and I have reconciled. We're great friends.
Oh yeah,
we
that's the best part we're going to get to too.
Yeah.
So it's good to
100%.
we'll build it up, man. It
Yes.
is what happened. So like I'm excited to share it too, man. It's awesome.
But any ugliness that comes out about who she was is not a reflection of who she is, and I just
Awesome.
want to honor her and say that. But we moved here, and the reason I moved here, I had opportunities to go elsewhere, is because she had been a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to be a cop. She had a degree in criminal justice, and the department that gave her the best shot was down here. So I chose to bite the bullet on my career, come to something that maybe wasn't my first choice, in order to give her a shot at her career, because she had done so much to support mine.
Yeah.
So we moved down here, and this is early 2017, and she gets into a program where they pay for her to go to the academy here. And in Florida, it's a single state academy, and then you can be hired on by any department.
Sure.
Not each
Yeah.
department has an academy.
Yeah, it's a state-run facility, and then from there you go off and
Right. But she had a contract to a specific police department already down here. And for the sake of what I'm going to tell you, I won't say what department it was, because it's not going to reflect great on them. So she got tagged with a training officer before she started the academy to kind of just tag along, stick around until she started the academy, because they were already paying her as a cadet, even though she wasn't in the academy yet.
Yeah.
So typical right out of a Hollywood movie, I'm sitting home, her phone buzzes. I don't go through people's phones. That's not my thing. I don't care. And I trust you. But if I'm sitting there and the screen lights up and someone's using a pet name talking to my wife, I'm going to ask a question.
Naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. So I asked the question. It doesn't take long for her to let me know that, like, you know, she had an affair with somebody at her new job, and it tanks me, man. And at the time, I blamed it all on her. Maturity and time lets me know, like, man, she was wanting for something that I wasn't giving her. So that takes some self-realization. But I go double down. We go to counseling. I give it everything I can, man. And we get past it, and we're working on getting better. And then I get this weird feeling, you know, call it what you will. Now I would call it the Holy Spirit. Back then it was just a gut feeling that there was more. So I asked, and she finally told me that there was infidelity on both my deployments, and just not great things. And what didn't rest well with me is, if that all came out in our counseling when we were putting everything on the table, I probably would have been able to get past it.
Yeah.
But it showed me that the counseling was a front and a means to an end, because you were still holding so much back.
Sure.
So I was pretty hurt, and that was when we decided to separate. The worst part is that she did not make it in that department. This was a contributing factor to her not making it in that department. The other officer involved also did not make it in that department. So now she's unemployed. Why does that matter? Because she can't afford to move out of our house.
Okay.
So I am cohabitating with my separated spouse in a house for about 9 months.
Wow.
While we are going through a divorce and we are not together. You know, who's on the couch, who's in the bedroom, splitting time with the kids, even though we live under the same roof. It's not good.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So simultaneously with that, I played rugby up to and including the professional level. And I suffer a devastating knee injury. I blow out my knee. And I have this single moment that sticks out in my head when I'm laid up in my bed. I'm on painkillers. My wife left me. My kids aren't there. I'm lonely and I'm lost and I'm pissed at God. And I'm thinking, like, is the world better without me? I get to that place where I'm really considering, like, if I took myself out of the way, would everyone else just be better off?
Yeah.
And that was my rock bottom, man. So because I can't play rugby, I decided to coach the team down here. So I take over a team down in Pensacola as the coach. And one of the players every Thursday is like, man, come to church. when we're at practice on Thursday, he's like, man, this Sunday, come to church. I'm like, dude, I don't even want to hear it. God ain't got anything for me. I'm on God's absolute crap list. Like, no, I'm not doing it. And he doesn't stop, which is, it'll make sense in a little bit.
Yeah.
He tries for 6 months to get me to go to church, and I stiff on him. Well, I'm doing what a lot of wounded people do, where your wife cheats on you and you feel like you're not enough. So I pour everything into my appearance. I can't fly because of my knee. So I'm going to the gym twice a day, trying to look as pretty and as swole and as perfect as I can physically, because then maybe I'll be good enough and somebody will want me, right?
Yeah.
Well, in this process, I see this beautiful girl, and I'm like, man, I got to talk to her. So it takes me a month, and I muster up the courage, and I walk up to her, and she's wearing this shirt that says Gym Tan Laundry, and I'm from New Jersey, and Jersey Shore is like a big deal at the time. I'm like, this is it, man. This is my
What are you talking about? It's always been a big deal. It's still a big deal.
It's true. So I walk up, and I'm like, hey, I really like your shirt. I'm from New Jersey. And she pulls her earbud out and just says, thanks, and puts it right back in and keeps working out. I was like, dang, man, that didn't go well.
And so and Steve, you're a good looking cat. You're tall, you're strong. Like, thank God we're only competing for best legs. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But to have her after you've worked all this time on yourself and where you're coming from, man. She just stone cold just says, hey, thanks.
Yep. And You know what? I took offense to it too, but I found out later she was also going through a really bad divorce, and the last thing she wanted to do was talk to men. So I take it as that. Like, it wasn't me, Yeah. But I take that rejection, and I'm like, man, I'm hurt, but I'm not dead. And I get the courage back up for another month, and I'm like, what's a better approach? How do I do this better? How do I talk to this girl?
Yeah.
Because I like your shirt didn't work. So a month later, I see her in the gym. Now, mind you, we're in the gym together 5 days a week, and I just don't talk to her.
Yeah.
But a month later, I see her, and I'm like, this is it. We're doing it. Because this time she's wearing a shirt that says Pura Vida, and I have a tattoo that says that because I love Costa Rica.
Oh, there we go.
Right. I've been to Costa Rica a bunch. So I walk up to her, and I had this super original pickup line. I walked up, and I said, hey, I like your shirt. She looked at me, and she goes, you're the shirt guy. Yeah. Dang, dude.
Oh,
I'm
no.
the shirt guy.
You're the shirt guy.
And she was like, hey, thanks. Put her earbud in, kept working out. Well, a month later, I see a friend of mine talking to her, and I'm like, this is my bridge. I use that bridge. I climb over it. We have a conversation.
Is she wearing a shirt? Is she wearing a shirt?
She was wearing a shirt, luckily. I didn't say anything about it. Yeah. So I walk her to her car. We say goodbye. I get to my car, and I'm like, you idiot. You didn't give her your number. You didn't get her number. Nothing. So I pull a piece of paper out of my car, write my phone number, run across the street, knock on her window. She rolls down her window, and I throw my phone number at her face. I've been out of the game for 7 years. I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't remember this, but she tells me that all I said was, call me or don't, that's fine, and walked away. That's how smooth I was. So luckily she does. She calls me.
Yeah.
And after talking and texting a little bit, I see her on a Saturday at the gym, and I said, I'd really love to take you out on a date tomorrow. Something super non-threatening, breakfast, brunch, daytime, I want to do this right.
Yeah.
And she pops back with, well, I go to church Sunday mornings. So I'd love for you to join me, and then we can get brunch after. And where my friend had been trying for 6 months, all it took was the pretty girl from the gym to ask me one time. And I was like, I love church. You know what? I'm all in.
Wait, so was it the same church?
It was not.
Oh man, that'd have been even crazier. That'd been awesome.
So this was a good Baptist church down here in Pensacola, Florida. I'd never been to a Baptist church before. I went with her coming from a Catholic church. It was so different. It already felt way more accepting and less traditional, and I liked it. But if you don't know anything about Baptist, they don't like alcohol, like at all. And I'm by no means a big drinker, but I knew like after church I was probably going to go watch some football and have a beer.
Yeah.
And I had this guilt, like I was being one person sitting in that church and another person as soon as I left the church, and I didn't like that.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that,
Yeah. And I started reading scripture, and I started getting intimate with the Bible, And, you know, I know what the Bible says about alcohol, and it says drunkenness is a sin, but nowhere do I find that just having a sip of alcohol is a sin. And, you know, so I was struggling. I was just wrestling. And I went to practice, rugby practice, a month or two after started going to that church. And my buddy said, hey, my church is putting on this thing. It's called a night of worship. It's just a concert. It's literally right down the street from your house. And I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, you're going.
Okay.
Yeah. I was like, okay. Like, I already went to church. And I thought me and God were starting to be homeboys again. Like, I thought we were getting good. What I didn't realize is I hadn't even scratched the surface of what a relationship with God really was.
Yep.
I went to this night of worship, and the Holy Spirit came out like the Undertaker in WWF and just spine busted me over his knee, like broke my back, just snapped me in half. I'm a Catholic dude. Every church service I've been to has been stoic, stand up, kneel down. Nobody sings out loud, and they just kind of mumble the Latin, you know? Mm-hmm. I end up on my knees, ugly crying, snot and tears falling on the floor, people praying over me, and everything just broke inside of me, man. And for the first time, I felt like God was like, man, you are enough. Like, you're worthy. You're enough. And I never felt that way before.
Yeah.
And I stood up and I went home, and I had this moment in the mirror where I had an honest conversation with myself. And I said, man, if this is what God is, if this is what everyone's talking about, then I'm willing to give everything to him, because I think he just saved my life.
So we go back to that moment where you're in the congregation of this church, and you're actually at this worship night.
Yeah.
You know, where they're giving praise. Like, what can you identify what in there caused you to just let go and give it up to the Holy Spirit? Like, what do you remember that moment? Do you remember the?
Yeah. So it was a song, "What a Beautiful Name" by Hillsong. Mm-hmm. A beautiful name. And I was listening to the words, and there's this bridge where they say, you know, you have no rival, you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the glory. And I was just thinking about that, like, you have no rival part. And I was thinking about all the opposition I'd faced and all these daggers I'd taken and all this pain that I felt. And in that bridge, the senior pastor, Tim, who's now one of my best friends, I work for him, he got up and grabbed the microphone and just like spit this Bible verse out. It's like, if you feel broken, if you feel hurt, I need you to know that nobody needs to clean themselves up before they come to Jesus. Like, he wants your broken, he wants your messy, he wants your dirty. And for the first time, I felt like not being enough was okay. Like, it was okay that I was messed up, that I didn't need to fix it and then find him. It was okay if I brought all of it to him.
Yeah.
And I got so heavy that I took a knee. And I was crying, and
like
people
physically heavy. Yeah. You felt physically heavy. Yeah.
Like, the Holy Spirit was so palpable and so heavy on me that I had to kneel down, and the emotions just erupted, because previous to this point, the only emotion I had was anger.
Yeah.
I was either baseline or I was anger. I didn't cry. I didn't weep. Because it was vulnerable, right?
Sure.
I flew helicopters in the Navy's Spec Ops community. I show emotion, I'm weak. Yeah. I cry, I'm vulnerable. That's weakness. So everything was suffer in silence, embrace the suck, which there is a time for that.
Sure.
That's also a thing.
Yeah.
But all the time is not the time for that. With your kids is not the time for that. With your wife is not the time for that. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't vulnerable. And for the first time, I just let it all go, man. And it ripped me wide open. Mm-hmm. So I give my life to Jesus. I'm like, man, if this is God, if this is the God everyone talks about, I'm going to give him everything I have. Because I was thinking about ending it all, and now I have a reason to live, right? So me and this girl keep dating, and we're getting better and better and better. And she is now my wife, which is incredible. She's the girl that brought me back to Jesus. And the way I got back into church was that I started serving, but God wasn't done with my story. So right now I'm a pilot that attends church. Not that crazy of a story. But then I deploy. And I wasn't supposed to. So I'm down here on a shore tour. And there's these things called IAs, or individual augmentees. Mm-hmm. And that is when there's a deployable unit with a gapped billet. So they take somebody and they throw them and they deploy them. And because of the work I had done some tours with NATO special forces and foreign entities. And there was a NATO deployment and there was a gap billet. And I got told halfway through my shore tour, like, hey, homie, in about 4 weeks, you're kicking. Like, you're going out the door for 6 months.
That's what you get for being useful, man.
right? How
Yeah.
dare I?
How dare you be useful and good at your job? So
So,
halfway, so you're expecting with shore duty, you're expecting that's, and I've talked to my wife about it because she was in the Navy. That's the time where you get to
yeah.
relax, you get to ramp
Oh yeah,
down a little bit.
that's right.
It'd be equal to her having the bush at the docks, right, where
Yep.
they're doing the docks. So
Yep.
you're taking it easy. It's a 9 to 5. You're not
Yeah.
ramped up or anything like that. Versus
Yep.
when you guys are rotating out for missions at weeks at a time, getting ready for deployment.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I was a flight instructor. I flew 2 flights a day. I had the weekends off. Super chill.
Volleyball with Iceman and
That's
Goose, and
it.
you're just
Wear
good
my
to go.
dog tag and
Yeah.
my Jordan. Live my best life. So I get told I'm deploying for 6 months with NATO, and this is in July of 2019.
Okay.
So nothing crazy. I mean, the world was pretty peaceful. We did some work over with Russia or against Russia, but mostly like counter intel and stuff like that. The world wasn't crazy at war in 2019. It wasn't like my previous deployments. But when I got over there, I saw on the schedule religious services on a Sunday, and I showed up because I'm on fire for Jesus now. And it was just a Bible study. I didn't say anything. I'm the new guy. I go the second week, it's just a Bible study. And the third time I go and I ask, I'm like, hey, is it always a Bible study? Because don't get me wrong, I love Bible study. But that's always been like a separate thing than a religious service. I go to service and then I have my Bible study and it's like peanut butter and jelly. And they told me that there was a gapped chaplain billet. There was no chaplain on this deployment. So there was nobody to lead religious services. And at that time, one of my guys turns to me and they're like, well, sir, you're the senior ranking officer in the room. Why don't you lead it? Now, I've never preached. I've captained teams. I've coached. I've led. I'm an officer. I can lead, but I've never preached. Didn't stop me from saying yes right away. Call it the Holy Spirit prompting, call it whatever you will. But I was like, yep, done. I'll do it. I'll lead religious services.
Yeah.
That snowballs into me preaching to a multinational unit overseas for 6 months.
And you're still flying missions too?
So I wasn't flying on this deployment. I was actually coordinating between all of the nations.
Okay.
So it was a billet called Battle Watch Captain. So every ship has a TAO, a tactical officer.
Yeah.
And all the tactical officers work together through the Battle Watch Captain to coordinate the movement of the entire NATO maritime group.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like the linchpin between all the foreign tactics officers for all of the units. So I was controlling the air and the ground and the surface and the subsurface for everybody.
Okay.
But I'm doing that job on top of this preaching, yes. So
Okay.
I'm standing watch and I'm going to meetings and I'm working with the admiral. And then I'm on Sundays, like I'm preaching. And it was so fulfilling. It was so incredible. We saw people come to Jesus. We saw religious services grow from like 4 people to 50 people. It was huge. It was awesome. So
Wow.
I come
in
back.
the span of 6 months. This is what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
And we're talking. You said multinational. Like, what kind of people were coming in there?
So we had ships attached and detached to SNMG-1 throughout, but we had Portuguese, Canadian, Spanish, Italian, Norwegian, just all kind of foreign nation units.
Were they all English speaking, or did we have to translate? Or
so everything in NATO is English.
okay.
It's almost like a prerequisite to be able to communicate in the military.
Yeah.
If you fly anywhere in the world, the tower speaks English.
Okay.
If you're over any radio frequency, any shared maritime radio frequency, the language is English. So to operate in that NATO environment, yes, you have to be able to speak English as a second language.
Okay. All right.
So I get back from that deployment. I get engaged. I surprise my wife. I come home a couple weeks early. I get engaged to her. Life is awesome.
Yeah.
We get married in October of 2020. We get a house. I'm getting out of active duty in April of 2021. Because of my family, because of my shared custody with my kids, I'm not staying active duty. I'm not moving. I'm not losing my custody. Like I said, faith, family, health, and everything else is after that. Family is above me. Family is above my health. Family is above my job. I will quit my job to be with my family. Mm-hmm. It was an easy call.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do when I turn into a big boy? Like, what's my job now?
Yeah.
I'm getting out of the military.
You're civilian. Well, kind of. You went reserve though, right?
I did, yeah, and that's a whole God story too, and I'll include that. But I've never done from 17 years old. I've only ever been in the military. I'm 27. At this time, I'm 29. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no idea. So I look into my options. I get job offers from Trident, from Academy, from Evergreen, all these mercenaries, all these overseas contractors. Yep. But the problem is they take me away from home, which is the same thing I'm trying to fight. This one is 6 months overseas, 6 months home. This one is 60 days overseas, 60 days home. I got the airlines. I could easily go fly for Delta or American. Average airline pilots on the road 15 to 18 days a month. Still defeats the purpose of what I want to do. So I don't know. And I'm sitting on my couch and my phone gets a notification from Momentum Church. That's my church. Momentum Church's app. A little notification pops up. It says, we're hiring. I open it up and it says they're hiring a worship director. I'm like, you don't want that. I'm not a singer. You definitely don't want that. It says youth pastor. And I'm like, I'm not a pastor. That ain't me. And it says groups director. I look into groups director and it says you're a person who leads people, who leads people, who leads groups. It sounds like the military.
It sounds like your last NATO deployment.
Right. You're a person who leads people, who leads people, who leads groups. So that same friend that made me go to the night of worship, I let him know I'm thinking about it. Well, he's best friends with the senior pastor. They actually go all the way back to college together. They went to college together. So he finishes a conversation with me and calls senior pastor and was like, hey, you know that 6'3" strapping, beautiful, well-spoken,
goof.
strong man.
Straight up goof.
You know that goofy idiot who's in the military? Like, man, he's thinking about coming and working for you. And this is how I knew it was a setup. My pastor is a lot of things. Great person. Strong Christ follower. Amazing speaker. Fitness aficionado, not one of them. I get a call at 9 p.m. from my pastor, and he's like, hey, man, you want to go get a lift in? I'm like, what? Sure.
A lift in? He said it like that?
He's like, you want to go get a lift in? I was like, yeah, it's 9 o'clock at night. I said, well, just so you know, if we're going to lift today, my next lift is legs.
Oh, no.
No problem.
I've been on that horse before. No, sir. Not with Steve.
So fast forward 30 minutes into the lift and he's praying to the porcelain gods. He's throwing up on me. And I'm like, bud, I'm sorry.
We just warmed up, man.
Yeah. He took the opportunity to really vet me and ask me. And I said, you know, there's a bottom line question I got to ask you. What's it pay? Okay. I have built a life. I bought a house. I have a wife. We have 3 kids. We want to grow our family. I have a baseline of what I need to make.
Sure. Yeah. Providing.
Yeah. He tells me a number. It's not even close. It's not even 50% of where I need to be.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, man, love you. Love the church. I'm still going to come. Can't do it. This was November of 2020. Yeah, November 2020.
So you got married in October 2020.
Yep.
You made the decision to start making moves because you said you got out in April 2021 out of so you're approaching. You already know. You're already putting your orders in for
put it in a year
whatever
out.
it is. Yeah.
So
So you're in the motions for it. So now it's like let's align things. So you go to this guy and you're like, hey, I'd like to do this. And he tells you, okay, well, here's the compensation. And you already have something in your mind right now or at that time, and it's nowhere near it.
Correct.
What were you thinking? Like what? Like
I was thinking there's not a snowball's chance in hell that I can make that work. That's what I was thinking. You know?
Appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't do it. So what my church does every year in January, I'm actually doing it right now, is we do a 21-day fast to start the year. And it's a dietary fast. They don't tell you what type of fast to do. They kind of let you choose what fast works best for you. And I did a Daniel fast that year, which is, if you don't know what a Daniel fast is.
Please let us know because I need to know.
Yeah. So in Daniel, book of Daniel, he is taken by the king of Babylon when Babylon takes over the tribe of Judah, and they take kind of the hotshot young men and they're like, man, are these men worth it? We're going to train them up and see if it's worth bringing them onto the king's court in Babylon, even though they're Israelites. So they bring him to the meal table and they have all this food out there. And he's like, hey, man, I actually have this covenant with God where I can't eat like any of that because of the Mosaic Law. They have
Mhm.
dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
Like, all I can eat is the vegetables and the water. And his keeper is like, no, bro, because if you come back emaciated, it's me who's going to get killed, not you. I need you to eat. So he lays down a challenge and says, for 10 days, let me eat just the vegetables and drink the water. And I bet you I am the most nourished, fit man out of all the people here. 10 days on vegetables and water. He's the healthiest. He's the most nourished. He's the fullest. It's a God thing. And he makes it onto the king's court. And then the story of Daniel continues from there. And I don't want to preach the whole story of Daniel because it's a lot.
It's a lot. It is. But in that section, you have other contenders for this court that are eating the meats. They're eating all those things that would naturally nourish somebody.
Yes.
But instead of just eating the vegetables and keeping to his promise to God, he is then nourished himself, surpassing those who just go with what they're given. Okay.
And that story right there tells you the difference between a diet and a fast. Right? A diet is, I want to look a certain way. I want to get my health a certain way. And that's great. That's awesome. There's a time for that. A fast is, I'm believing God for something so big that I'm going to sacrifice what's comfortable for me and believing God is going to come through. It's not about the diet. It's about drawing closer to him. Yeah. And that's what it was. So the Daniel fast in layman's terms is, if it doesn't grow the way you eat it, you ain't eating it. Nothing processed, no meats, no dairy, no cheese. It's basically fruits and vegetables. There you go. That's the Daniel fast. And water.
Okay.
So
any rice?
Nope.
Okay.
No rice.
No rice. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
rocks, I guess. We're eating rocks. Okay.
You can lick a rock. I guess you want to lick a rock, you're welcome to. So anyway, I'm fasting, and what I'm fasting for is clarity on employment. Like, God, show me what I'm supposed to do. What God did
at this time in January of 2021.
Correct.
Got it.
What God did is not what I wanted, which so funny. That's often how it turns out. What God really brought to my heart was, you're looking for a job. I presented you with a calling. And if the only thing from stopping you from your calling is money, then you don't trust me enough. And I was like, oof, like all the air exited my lungs. And I was like, yeah. So I get to work on Excel. I'm like, man, I'm a personal trainer. If I do personal training this much and this many hours, and what it came down to was, like, if I work 40 hours a week at the church and 40 hours a week at personal training, I could probably squeak by.
Because you're not compromising on that number, right? Like,
No.
you're not. That's the number. This is your plan.
Correct.
Little y, your plan.
Correct.
Versus big H, his plan. What we're talking about. Got it. Okay.
So in my head, I'm like, you know what, Steve? Know your worth. Pull your big boy pants up. Ask him for a little more. Sell yourself. So I decide I'm going to combine the two. And I went back to my pastor. I said, here's what I'll offer you. I will be the group's director, but I'll also be the staff's wellness director. I will write personalized nutrition plans, personalized workout plans, because he holds physical health very high.
Sure.
In his statutes as well. And I increased the salary he wanted to give me by 50%.
Okay.
And he shook my hand so fast, I wish I would have asked for more. Because I gave the number and he was like, it's a deal. And I shook my hand. And I was like, God, I should ask for more money.
The worst negotiator ever. Yeah. That's okay.
Now, here's the thing. That 50% increase still put me at just about 50% of what I needed. So I was at exactly 50% of what I needed. But I stepped out on faith and I said, God, I'll personal train until the paint comes off the walls if I have to. But if this is a calling, I'm going to trust you. Mm-hmm. So I started working for the church end of February, about a week after I started terminal leave. So I went on terminal leave in February. Mm-hmm. My official out date is April 21st. And I'm now working for the church while I am on terminal leave. So I'm double dipping my pay, which is helpful.
Sure.
Because I'm still getting paid by the military. I'm on leave, but I'm also working for the church. I'm like, that'll even buy me some time, right? Mm-hmm. Well, not 3 weeks later, I get a phone call from the reserve coordinator, and they're like, hey, man, we have a single billet for a reserve flight instructor. It pays as much as you fly. There's no cap on it, and we want to offer it to you. Wow. And in 30 seconds, I was making more money than I was making before I quit the military.
Dude.
But I truly believe if I didn't step out in God's obedience and take something that was uncomfortable for a calling, I wouldn't have seen the provision on the back end.
You never would have got that call. You never would have got that, man. That is
so. I'm sitting here in
awesome.
March. And I know my last day is April 21st, and I know that on April 22nd, I'm making more money than I was making active duty. And I'm fine. And I'm good.
Yeah.
So now I'm a groups director, which still isn't the job that I have now because I am a pastor. And we're coming off of COVID. This is early 2021. There hadn't been groups. There hadn't even been church for a while. We just started going back to church. So my senior pastor tells me, like, man, I want you to, from now until September, read all these books, study all these churches that run groups, come up with a plan. We're going to launch groups in September. And I'm giving you a 6-month runway to make it happen. Okay. That sounds great. Yeah. So I'm reading these books and I'm doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, the Holy Spirit was already putting on his heart, like, hey, man, I think that's your youth pastor. I think that's your guy. He's having dreams, and these dreams have to do with a baseball mitt that his uncle gave him, and he can't find it. And there's a voice telling him it's already in the house. And he's like, what do you mean it's already in the house?
He's telling you that he's having these dreams.
After the fact. Once I got so I've learned all this retrospectively. Yeah. So he's having these dreams, and it's already in the house, and it's in this safe, and he can't open the safe, and he can't find the key, and it's just all this stuff. And what it was pointing to was like, man, that position is already in the house. You already have him. He's already hired. And the greatest part about my job as youth pastor is that I received the offer for this employment after getting in a bar fight at a high school youth event. So
it literally was Jesus saying, listen, bro, you need Jesus. Like this guy needs what? So say a fight. Yeah.
Yes. So
tell us about the fight. Let's hear this fight.
In this interim, and while I was active duty a little bit, I did a lot of third-party security, executive security, event security.
Okay.
I'm a big guy. It's what I do.
Yeah, you're okay.
I was a competitive fighter from the age of 7 on. I was a rugby player. Contact doesn't bother me. My nose is already flat. You can't break it any more than it's broken.
Yep.
Like, let's go.
Yep.
So I am working for the church as groups director, and Tim already wants to vet me for youth pastor. I don't know this. And COVID decimated the youth group. We had 7 high schoolers and 10 middle schoolers left because for a year and a half, there was no youth group. And all we really had was a few middle schoolers and high schoolers whose parents still attended the church.
Because everyone was told to stay home. This is the result of that.
And the youth pastor had left to launch a church at the end of 2019, and the church had an intent to hire a new youth pastor, but then COVID hit.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been a youth pastor since the end of 2019.
Okay.
So there's these 2 volunteers that really held this small group together. And they planned an ice hockey night. There's an ice hockey team here in Pensacola, and they planned taking these 17 kids to an ice hockey night. And Tim calls me, and he's like, hey, man, we just really need another adult chaperone. Could you do it for me? It was a job interview that I didn't know was a job interview. I just thought, like, I'm on staff. He needs a warm body.
Yeah.
I'll go be the warm body.
This time, though, you're not consoling some man over the porcelain throne as you put him through 30 minutes of legs. Like, it's a little different. Still the same concept, though. Yeah.
Same concept. So I go, we get pizza at this place in downtown Pensacola, and we're sitting outside at some tables, and there's a loud ruckus in the outdoor bar area. So Tim taps me on the chest and is like, hey, man, go check that out. He knows I did security. He knows I was a bouncer. Mm-hmm. So I go over there, and there is a little drunk man at 5 p.m. on a Friday, fist-balled, screaming in a female manager's face, inches from her nose, just screaming, cursing. So I put myself in the rear quarter of him. It's a very defensive, tactical position, the rear quarter of him. And I'm like, man, if he does anything stupid, I get to him first. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Well, in his drunk rambling and ranting, he trips over himself and falls into me. His head went to about here. Mm-hmm.
You're pointing to your sternum.
Yeah, about mid-chest. So if I'm 6'3", he was probably 5'8".
Yeah, okay.
5'7".
Yeah.
So he bumps into me, he turns around, gives me an up-down, and makes a very calculated decision. And I said, hey, man, look, all these kids out here, those are my kids. I just need you to watch your mouth and calm down. And he says, you know what? F you. Mm-hmm. F those kids.
Yeah. You just told a little person to calm down.
Yes.
I try that sometimes with my wife, and it ends up in the same result. It is never what you want. They never calm down. Don't ever.
So I do what's called swing the barn door. I swing my left arm open to give him a path to exit. I put my right hand on the back of his tricep, and I say, "Hey, bud, it's time for you to go."
Yeah.
He takes the opportunity to make a big old swing with his right arm at me. He's drunk.
Yeah.
If you've ever been a bouncer, let me tell everyone listening, drunk people are the easiest people to fight because they think they're quick and they're moving in jello. They think they're getting a sneak on you, and you can see it coming from a mile away. Yep. So he does this big swing with his right hand. I think I yawned and ducked it. It was so slow.
Can you believe this guy? Then you duck,
Yeah. I get behind him. I put him in a chokehold. I get him in an arm lock. I lift him up. I drag him out to the street like the trash he was acting like.
Yeah.
And his friends are running out, and they're like, "Oh, we'll get him. We'll get him." Meanwhile, all the high schoolers are pulling out their cell phones. My senior pastor and his wife are like, "Put your phones away. We don't need this." And I let the guy go. His friends get him out of there. The cops come. They trespass the guy, and they're like, "Man, you're a hero." And the big joke of the night was that they saw more fighting before the hockey game than at the hockey game.
There you go.
And meanwhile, I'm like, man, I'm getting fired. I got in a bar fight at a youth event.
Yeah.
There's no way I don't get fired.
Okay.
So Monday comes along. I walk into work, and my boss says, "Hey, Steve, can I talk to you in the office?"
You're like, this is it. Yep.
Yeah, it does. I sit down. He says, "I want to talk to you about Friday." I figured. He goes, "I'm proud of you." And I was like, "What?
What?
What?" He says, "You showed a generation of young men ownership, and that being a Christian doesn't make you weak."
Oof. I like that.
And I want to offer you a job as youth pastor.
Man.
Yeah.
Nice.
So forever, I could say I got my pastoral job from getting in a bar fight at a youth event, which is really cool. So I started with just high school, and then I grew middle school, and then I got put over kids. So I was over kids, middle school, and high school, and then I launched young adults in college. And now it's called the Now Gen Pastor, the Now Generation Pastor. That's me. I'm from birth through college, and under me I have a kids director, a middle school pastor, and a young adults leader. And my only direct link is to high school, because that's my heart. And I still directly lead and preach to my high schoolers every Wednesday. And this is what God has done, man. And this is the amazing thing that can happen when you just lean into God's calling for you. When I started, we had 10 middle schoolers, 7 high schoolers, a decimated kids ministry, no young adults or college ministry to speak of. And this was April of 2021, 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We run over 100 kids every Sunday. We got 60 middle schoolers, and middle school runs concurrent with church, so it's kind of beholden to the adults that come to church, and I know that. Mm-hmm. But high school, we run on Wednesdays, and in Florida, you can drive at 16, so sophomores on up basically drive themselves. We run over 100 high schoolers every Wednesday and have over 200 that are involved in the program.
That's awesome.
In the college ministry, I launched last June, about a year and a half ago, and we just took 65 college students to Passion Conference in Atlanta, which is what you want me to talk about next.
Yeah, but real quick on that. Yeah,
to 65.
That's amazing, and I just want to say, the metrics you're using for success, right? Because we started this conversation more about your job. You're finding it.
Yep.
I'm finding a job and a need to provide. So, typically for just a non-Christian or somebody out in the civilian world, who has a regular job, your metrics of success are often your paycheck. Hey, this is, which is, being taken care of, but the metrics you're following are the metrics that are important to you are bringing people to God, bringing people to Christ. Right. And that's the message. You're not like, hey, we're selling this widget. We're making this money on this deal. We're saving these people. And it's actually the children and the young adults and these people that are susceptible to the ways of the world, the ways of the broken world. So that's just awesome to highlight that, going from, basically less than 30 in a program to now 300, 300 and 365 ish, back and forth between kids, high school and college, which is exponential.
what you said is spot on. Church is a business. It's a business,
Sure.
but we don't deal in dollars and cents. We deal in souls and salvations. And some people get bent when they hear, oh, numbers. It's all about numbers. It's all about numbers. Well, numbers matter because every number is a person. Every person's a story.
Sure.
I'm not sitting here going, if we don't hit 150, you're not doing your job and I need to crack the whip. But am I going to celebrate the fact that last year 117 middle schoolers and high schoolers gave their life to Christ and got baptized? Yeah, I'm going to celebrate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to scream it from the rooftops for every single one of those 117.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get paid by commission. I don't get paid for salvation.
Paid per baptism. Oh my gosh.
No.
No.
But being able to sit back and go, man, the life change that I have seen because I was lucky enough to be called into ministry and for Christ to work through me,
Mm-hmm.
I will celebrate that all day. And if you would have asked me 8 years ago, I could have never said that sentence.
I think about that myself. 8 years ago,
Yep.
me, 8 years ago, you, like completely carnal people of this
Yep.
world, just running through like just the I guess the common pitfalls of just being a guy nowadays.
Yep.
That's awesome. So
Lifting, drinking, and having sex. Let's be real.
lifting, drinking, yep, drinking,
That's
just
it, dude.
having sex, and just
Yeah.
this
Living for the world.
laissez-faire way of life, and
That's right.
yeah, man. We're going to talk about passion here, but like it's obviously if somebody had gotten a hold of us at that younger age, but we are our path. We are the steps that we've walked. They make us
Yep.
who we are, and it's part of God's plan for us. And that's what it is. It's just you think like, man, if I had had a Steve back when I was in high school or somebody to do that to bring me there, of course I would still be me. But you just
Well, the truth is, right, your trials become your testimony.
yeah.
And there is a testimony in growing up in a good Christian house and finding God because your parents were Christians and always being close to him. And that is a testimony that will reach people. But there's also a testimony in saying, I lived in the world until I was 27 and I didn't know how lost and broken I was until I found him.
Yeah.
And I want to teach you lessons that I had to learn the hard way. So maybe you don't have to.
Sure.
And both of those testimonies hold weight for different people. And it matters. It matters what your testimony is. So I'm just super grateful and happy that I was able to be used by God in such a way that I can reach a high schooler who doesn't know Jesus because I didn't know Jesus in high school.
Yeah.
And I can get down and go, oh, you're drinking? Oh, you're smoking weed? Oh, you already had sex? Cool, man. So did I, and God can still use me. And that's a very different angle than somebody who grew up in a good Christian home, went to Bible college, and said, I can't believe you're drinking.
Yeah.
You're smoking the devil's lettuce. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah. It reminds me of Doubting Thomas, as far as and not to discredit people that grow up in church families.
Not at all.
Like
I
our
wish I
kids,
did, man.
yeah, like our kids are going to experience that, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be great. But it's almost just like those who have seen me and believe is one thing, but you have not. Those who are not you, Thomas, who haven't seen but believe, that they're going to be blessed also. So just that that's what that reminds me of, man. And that's awesome. When we were texting, you said you were at this Passion convention.
Yes.
You were throwing out some crazy numbers of people in attendance and where it was at, and you were stoked to share about it. What was this Passion conference?
So there is a pastor by the name of Louis Giglio who runs a church in Atlanta called Passion City Church. And since 1996, he has held a conference specifically for young adults. It's called the Passion Conference. It's for high school seniors through 25-year-olds and their leaders. That is the bracket. And it is now so big that they hold it at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome where the Atlanta Falcons play.
Oh, wow.
And 55,000 college students, young adults, and their leaders get together, and it sells out. It sells out well in advance.
I saw that. I had to watch the live stream a little bit because it was just like sold out. Watch the live stream, sold out, and there was thousands of people watching the live stream.
Yeah, man, exactly. And I forget the exact number, but I wanna say I'm pretty sure 72 countries represented in the house.
Wow.
People from 70. There's people that flew from Japan, from Christian universities in Japan, to be in Atlanta for the Passion Conference. And it is just such a move of God. And the speakers there, Levi Lusko, Ben Stewart, Christine Kane, Sadie Huff, John Pacluta, Louis Giglio. Last year, there's different speakers that rotate through. Tim Tebow spoke last year. There's just Jackie Hill Perry. It's another big name. But they just come, and it is 3 days of fire hose to the face of these amazing speakers, these amazing sermons. You're just getting poured into, and then some of the best worship bands. Crowder was there, Brandon Lake was there, Passion City Music, Carrie Job, Cody Carnes.
Phil Wickham, was he
Yeah,
there? Was Phil there?
who?
Phil?
Phil Wickham. Yep, Phil Wickham was there. KB, if you're a Christian rap guy, KB tore the roof off the place. I mean, it's just nonstop for 3 days. And I was, the first time I brought any was 3 years ago, and I went with 19, and I was like, man, 19, because we had high school seniors and like a couple college kids that went to church. And then last year I got intentional with it, and we had just launched our college ministry, and I brought 29. Like, let's freaking go.
Okay.
And then this year we brought 65, and it's only getting bigger.
Yeah. So you went from 19 to 29, and then you just doubled.
Yes.
And these are all young people coming to this.
That's it, man.
Okay.
That's all the college kids, all the young adults.
High school seniors to 25.
Correct.
Okay. And
Yep.
so you have the speakers, you have the worship, it's all in this, and like what are you seeing there? Like what is the substance there that you're seeing with hearing these speakers and this worship and such?
It's life change, and it's so much life change that our church, our senior pastor shut down church this Sunday and gave it to the young adults and let the young adults share their testimonies from stage instead of holding a traditional gathering, a traditional service, because there was so much impact and so much life change. And I'll give you quick examples, just the 4 people that we really shared their testimony on stage. One of them, young kid Zach, he found Jesus in high school, started serving at the church, went through COVID, got burnt out, got far away from God again, came back, goes to Passion 2 years ago, gets back on fire, goes to Passion last year, gets more on fire, goes to Passion. Now he's one of my high school leaders, and I would trust him with the keys to the whole ministry. And it started with Passion a couple years ago.
Yeah. And
Another kid.
And you said this was Zach?
He's 23 years old now.
23 years old now. Okay.
Yep. Another young adult up there. She is a high school senior. Her name is Ren. A year ago, she didn't even go to church. She came to my youth group because a friend invited her. Couple weeks in, gives her life to Jesus. Starts coming to church on Sundays, youth group on Wednesdays, talking about God in her Facebook statuses and her Instagram posts, and just like unafraid to share her faith all over the internet, which as a high schooler, probably one of the hardest things to do is to openly share your faith, because it's not
today.
Cool.
Yes,
right?
It's not cool. Yeah.
And she goes to Passion, and it ignites a fire in her heart, and she comes back and she's like, man, I'm going to intern. I want to serve with the church. I might want to go into ministry one day. And you just see this. A year ago, you didn't even go to church. And now at 18 years old, you're so on fire that you're ready to devote your life to this.
Yeah.
We have this girl, Kara. Kara's a little bit of an older young adult. She's 26 years old. She was engaged, lived in San Francisco, had a career. Engagement fell apart, lost her career, moved back in with mom and dad, and now she's in the same stage of life as a lot of 19-year-olds. Don't know what I'm doing, don't know where I'm going, living with mom and dad. And, oh, by the way, the year that all that happens, her best friend dies in a car crash.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So Levi Lusko gets up there and gives this sermon about grief. Mm-hmm. His daughter died when she was 5 years old. She had an asthma attack and in minutes passed away in front of his eyes. And he said, this hurt me as a dad. He said, she had asthma because I gave it to her, because he was the one in the family that had asthma. Mm-hmm. So he was the hereditary gene that gave his daughter asthma. Yeah. And he said, it was hard, it was trauma, but it took a lot for me to understand that trauma is not my template for life. God's word is the template that I have for my life. And when I used to think every day was a day further away from the last time I saw her, it hurt. But then God showed me that I'm actually a day closer to the next time I get to see her.
Absolutely.
And for Kara, it just took all that grief and all that weight from that best friend and threw it on the floor.
Yeah.
She shared that testimony from the stage at church. A girl who's never spoken at church before is now on stage in front of the entire congregation, openly sharing this story and openly sharing her grief. 26 years old.
And most, when most question, when you were in your search, and when you were going forward, and me as well, the grief side, the brokenness of this world,
Yep.
it's easy to get consumed in it. And there was a message that my senior pastor, Joe, when he was up there, he's talking about, when you experience grief, you have to ask the question, okay, God, who are you trying to reach? Who
Yeah.
are you trying to talk to with this? Because that man's daughter is with Jesus.
That's
Okay,
right.
and he will see him, and that's okay. And that's the part that I think a lot of folks are. It's hard to think about when you're here in this world every day, suffering in this world every day. You still hold on to this world, and it's just like
Yeah.
you're going to be taken care of. You're going to be
Oh,
there. You just need to know
yeah.
who he is and go to him. So like that part, it's struggle, and I wrestle with that too, because everyone loses people, and you
Yep.
lose people here, but then you have to realize it's broken here. This isn't.
That's right.
This isn't. We were not meant for this place for long. So
Yep.
like that, that's and to have someone so young, who you're influenced at a very young age, especially in this world now, about what to think and what to do, and Christianity and a relationship with God is not anywhere on the top of that chart.
Right.
But to have her let that go and have that spiritual maturity, it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's obviously it's God, and it's amazing. It's just
Yeah,
so
man.
cool to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's everything about passion. But man, I do. We don't have to circle back right now, but I do got to tell the rest of the story about my ex-wife before we hang up this call.
Oh yeah, please. Oh please. Yes, that's we got to get to that, because yes,
Yeah.
when you told me about this, like it stopped me.
Yeah.
It stopped me.
So I start working for the church in February 2021. I become the youth pastor in April 2021. Easter is right around that time. Church is a non-negotiable for me. Now I work for a church, so it's like super non-negotiable for me. And that Easter, my ex-wife had custody of the girls. And we had 50-50 custody. And at that point, we were not great. It was still contentious. It wasn't good. Yeah. So I called her and I just said, look, I know you have the girls on Easter. All I want to do is pick them up, bring them to church. I'll drop them right back off to you. It matters to me. And almost out of spite to me, she said, well, I'll just go with them to church. I'll bring them, as a way to say, like, you're not getting time with them when it's my time. So if you want them at church, that means I'm going to. And I was like, you know what? Whatever. Are the girls going to be at church? Cool.
Yeah.
I don't care.
That's an interesting way to spite somebody. It's like, well, I'm going to go to church too, and it's just like, okay, great. Like, come on over to church.
Yeah. But she was so far from that. She
Yeah.
had no faith background. She grew up agnostic. Her parents are from two very differing faiths, and neither of them are Christianity, and they didn't really practice any of them. And yeah, it was just a lot.
Okay.
But she goes to church. Here's the message on Easter, which, no surprise, it's about Jesus' sacrifice for you and his death and resurrection. And it hits her. And the gospel is broken.
It hits her.
It hits her. I see a physical change in her, even in the way she's sitting in the seat. Her shoulders soften. She leans in. She's listening. And our church is a gospel preaching church. There's an invitation to the gospel at the end of every service.
Yeah.
It's just how our church is built. Not every church does that. And there's an invitation at the end. The gospel is explained and what salvation is and what salvation isn't and what that looks like. And she gives her life to Jesus.
You see this. You see this actual physical reaction.
Yep.
Which obviously leads to a mental and spiritual reaction as well. But
yeah.
Where are you? Are you seated next to her, or where are you at?
We're all in a straight row. The girls are between us, but she is on the other side of the girl, sitting in the same row as me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right there. I'm in the middle of it, man. I'm sitting at church with my ex-wife, my two daughters, me, my stepson, and my current wife, all in a row.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's
Yeah.
Anywhere else.
Yep.
That would just be something out of like really bad rom-com, like really bad.
So she gives her life to Jesus, and it's easy for me to be skeptical because she has hurt me so many times. I almost don't want to believe that she can change.
Or is she worthy of salvation?
See, and it wasn't even that, because at this point I believe like salvation's for everybody.
Got it.
But
Okay.
in my heart, I'm not gonna lie, the worldly part of my heart was like, she's just doing this to get over. She's doing this to gain influence with me. She's doing this to gain favor with me. She just, I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
She showed me exactly who she was. Every Sunday she was at church. Her interactions with me radically changed. She became the most easy, cooperative co-parent I could ever imagine. And she genuinely started to shine the light of Jesus. And I was like, this is unreal. Fast forward to that September. Me and my current wife are baptizing my
Oh
ex-wife.
my gosh. So this was Easter,
Easter. Yep.
and then September that year,
Yep.
she decided to proclaim unashamed that Jesus is her Lord and
Publicly
Savior,
announce that
and
Jesus is her
you
Lord.
and your current wife are baptizing her.
Correct.
How is that not a miracle, man? Like, that is amazing.
Between the first time she came and the baptism, I don't think she missed a Sunday, man. I don't think she missed a Sunday. Every Sunday. And to this day, every Sunday, it is my ex-wife, my daughters, me, my stepson, my wife, now our newborn baby, who's usually in kids ministry, and then we have 2 foster children that we're raising together, but we're all still there together. It's all of us.
That's
and
beautiful.
It just works.
It's beautiful, man.
And she really has. It wasn't a show. It wasn't smoke and mirrors. It wasn't temporary. She is a person radically changed by the love of Jesus Christ. And she has brought friends who have been saved. She has brought friends who have been baptized. When she started dating a couple guys, the first place she brought him was to church. Which, tough crowd, you're coming to a church where her ex-husband works. but
Not as tough as you think. Not as tough, but still tough, right?
But it's a non-negotiable for her, even in her relationships now.
That's
If
awesome.
I'm going to get serious with a guy, he needs to have a relationship with Jesus. And I've seen that growth in her, and she has become a genuine friend of mine and my wife's. And it's amazing, man.
How many people out there would even, couldn't even fathom that. I couldn't even fathom that with an ex-spouse.
Yep.
And that's only because I'm not Jesus. It's only through him, dude. Like, that is pure testimony right there, man. That is awesome. I love that.
And who benefits from it? The kids.
Yeah.
Because we throw all our birthday parties together.
Yeah.
We do some holidays together.
Yeah.
We've gone on Sundays and watched football games.
Yeah. And they
the
see,
kids don't-
it's all
see.
because of what Jesus did.
Correct.
He's doing. And that is,
Yep.
man, that is the part that gives me goosebumps, man. Because you think, because you're like, okay, I could do this, but I could never go to church or establish a relationship with my ex or anything like that. Because you couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. It's not us doing it. And that's the trick. That's not the trick. That's the point. Like, it's just like, that's the thing, man. Just let that go and give it to him.
It's not me, it's Christ through me. And the other side of that, man, this is something that was spoken into me, because you can say it's not me, it's Christ through me so much that you don't give yourself the credit for being obedient.
Yeah.
And someone once described it. They said, yes, God did it, but you had to dig it and he handed you the shovel. And I love that.
Yeah.
Because just that someone hands me a shovel doesn't mean I'm digging a hole.
Yeah.
I have to choose to get up off my butt and dig the hole. So yeah, God did it, but he chose me to dig it.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that the shovel's in my hands, man.
Yeah.
That I got a second chance at life.
Yeah.
That I found somebody who can love me. I found somebody who accepted the broken parts of me and brought me back to Jesus. And through all of that, I was able to reestablish a relationship with the mother of my children. I couldn't have done any of that. None of it, man.
No.
So now I'm a pilot on Thursdays and Fridays as a reservist. I'm a pastor 24/7, 365 from birth through college. I'm leading one of our campuses for the church. So I'm also a campus pastor, which is a whole other realm of leadership, because I'm leading volunteers to lead a church. And it's just all so rewarding, man.
That's awesome, dude. Oh, whew. It hits me right. Oh man, it's beautiful, dude. Like, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it right now, because there's so much here, and in such redemption is, I mean, that is the quality. That's what we all seek, and we all continue to seek. And you talk about obedience, and you talk about these things that are necessary, because we are given this gift of having free will but also
Yeah.
having a relationship, and you have to dig the hole, you have to do the work, and you have to be obedient, and you will be the conduit, you will be the vessel, and these
That's
things
it.
will happen, and sometimes they happen in a way that is 100% direct beneficial, and sometimes it's indirect beneficial for somebody
Yeah.
else too. So, man, that's but in your case, man, that is perfect, and
Yeah.
it's so. Oh, I'm just if you just sit in this moment, it's just like just the lines being drawn, this
Yep.
design being drawn in your life, and in others too. But your specific example there is just it's just one small part of it that came one small little iota of possibility that can be done
Oh yeah.
when you accept and follow Jesus, man. That is, whew, that's fire, man, and I love that.
Yeah.
And this is, we wanted to get into some things with some literature you gave me and some aspects of this, but we're at that right time where we can do a part one right now. We're gonna
Yeah,
part
dude,
one
I'm
this
down
thing,
for a
dude.
part two. There's
Yeah,
plenty more to talk about.
absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of great stuff there, man. But dude, thank you so much for sharing that, man. That was all
Yeah.
like great things. If somebody wanted to learn more, because I know you do some series on Instagram and TikTok, and they wanted to hear more what you were talking about, maybe I'll post about the Passion Conference links,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
also I'll put on there your TikTok and your IG for people to watch that. And what church are you with right now?
I'm with Momentum Church down in
Momentum
Gulf
Church.
Breeze, Florida.
Momentum Church. Okay. So all that
Yep.
information will be down below for y'all folks to check that out. Take a look at that. Just see this beautiful man, and
Yeah.
objectively beautiful, but also as a follower of Christ and a great man in himself, as far as the qualities of which God wants us to be as men. Which we're going to get into that. I want to get
Yeah.
into especially that part where you mentioned about you talked about the bar fight where you thought you were going to get fired, but instead you were uplifted by him. And
Yep.
that's what we're going to talk about next time, about a
Yeah.
man's role here in the Christian world. Can't wait to
That's
do
right.
that. Any last words for this episode, big guy?
No, man, I appreciate you. I'm so glad we reconnected, man. I'm genuinely praying for you and your family every single day. I love you as a person. I got to be there at your wedding. I hope to be there at your 10th anniversary. And man, I'm just cheering you on. I appreciate the opportunity.
You do have a good singing voice. We did karaoke. You have a great singing voice. Okay,
I
that
appreciate it.
was a fantastic wedding reception, sir. All right, brother. Well, we'll go ahead and end it here. So everybody, just take care. God bless. We love you, and do something good today. And that concludes this episode of Solo Service Podcast. I want to thank you for listening, and I want to thank Upbeat for providing the musical intermissions featured in this episode. Now remember, you can find us on Podbeam. You can also find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and now you can find our episodes on YouTube.